Welcome back to the Accessible Art History YouTube channel. Today, I'm continuing our journey through the AP Art History required images. As stated in the last video, Unit 3 is a huge one, so I'm breaking down the list by culture. This video's focus is going to be on Byzantine art. There are other Byzantine-related images on the list, but they are both important buildings and I want to focus on them separately, so if you want to learn more, keep on watching. In the Byzantine world, one of the biggest signs of wealth was owning an illuminated codex or manuscript. The amount of labor that went into copying and illustrating a text meant that these objects were extremely expensive, and they became a status symbol for the upper echelons of society. This codex is a fascinating example of Byzantine art and one of the luxury objects of the era. It's called the Vienna Genesis and was created in the early 6th century. Note that it's named after the city in Austria because that's where it's held currently, but it was likely made in Byzantium, perhaps Syria or Constantinople. It is one of the oldest, best preserved, surviving illustrated biblical codices to survive, making it an important object for understanding art of this period. The Vienna Genesis is an idiosyncratic copy of a Greek translation of the original Hebrew of the Book of Genesis. This is the first book in both the Hebrew and Christian Bibles. The text is highly abbreviated and illustrated, which leads historians to assume it was for personal, reflective use. The vellum was once a rich purple, but it has faded over the centuries. The ink was made of silver and is faded to black, and while striking, has actually eaten away at the parchment, leaving gaps in some of the pages. The text fills the top half of the pages, while illustrations, after showing more than one scene to be read left to right, take up the bottom half of a page. Now we are going to look at two of the most famous pages from this codex. This page from the Vienna Genesis illustrates the story of Jacob. He was the son of Isaac and the grandson of Abraham, and is often considered as a patriarch of the Israelites. The illustration at the bottom of the page is painted as a frieze, or continuous narrative. Starting at the top left, Jacob is leading his family and servants across the river. He is the figure of the red and brown tunic. The group walks across the bridge, which is cleverly wrapped around to take us to the bottom half of the story. After Jacob reaches the end of the bridge, he is met with an angel. The two wrestle, and afterwards the angel blesses him. The family then resumes their journey. It is important to note that this is the moment after the match, where angel grants Jacob the new name of Israel. This is a key part of the Israelite history. While this story is a Hebrew one, it's clear that there are a lot of classical influences on this illustration. Their clothing is reminiscent of ancient Rome, and their poses are relaxed in a contrapposto style. There's a sense of dynamic movement, showing that this story is moving through time. It's amazing that the artist, whoever they were, was able to capture so many details in such a small space. Another famous page from the Vienna Genesis is the one that shows the story of Rebecca and Eliezer at the well. In Genesis 24, Abraham sought a wife for his son Isaac, dispatching his servant Eliezer to find a suitable match. Accompanied by 10 of Abraham's camels, Eliezer halted at the well to provide them with water. He asked God that Isaac's future spouse would aid him in this task. Rebecca appeared and assisted Eliezer, confirming to him that she was the one chosen for Isaac. The image at the bottom of the page shows two scenes. The first, which kind of wraps around the page, shows Rebecca leaving her town with a jar over her shoulder and approaching the well. Fascinatingly, the river has a personification, a partially nude goddess. This is a clear nod to the classical past. The second part of the scene shows Rebecca helping Eliezer at the well. The three-dimensionality of the moment is shown by the camels. Some are in front while the others are in the back, and they're all crowding to take a drink of water. There is also an interaction between Rebecca and Eliezer, creating a narrative scene. These are only 2 pages from the Vienna Genesis, but they can show us a lot about art of the early Byzantine period. This next required image on the list is one of my personal favorites from all of art history, so I'm super excited that I get to discuss it today. This icon, or image, is one of the earliest surviving examples from the Byzantine era, dating to the 6th century. It's housed in the monastery of St. Catherine of Sinai, which has one of the most important collections of ancient art and manuscripts in the world. It's even more exciting that this work survived because of the iconoclast destruction in the 8th and 9th centuries in Byzantium. Its location is likely what saved it. The icon is made of encaustic, or wax with pigment, on a wooden panel and measures 27 inches by 19.5 inches, or 68.5 centimeters by 49.5 centimeters. The Virgin Mary sits on the throne in the middle, holding an infant Christ on her lap. On our left is Saint Theodore, and on our right is Saint George. The group all have golden halos and are backed by 2 angels. We can only imagine how beautiful this would look in candlelight. One of the most important things that art historians have noted about this work is its combination of 2 distinct styles. The 3-dimensional form of the figures, especially with the stacking of the group and the wrapping of the fabric around their bodies, speaks to the classical elements of art. However, the slightly flat aspect of their faces and halos create a sense of abstraction and elongation seen in Byzantine art. Icons, especially one of this size, were meant for private devotional use. Our historians are confident that due to the luxury of this item, it was commissioned by the famous Emperor Justinian and his wife, the Empress Theodora. The icon ended up in Egypt at a monastery that the imperial couple founded. Regardless of its ownership, this icon is truly a masterpiece. This video only discusses part of the Byzantine artworks required by the AP Art History test. Next time, I'm going to dive into some architecture, so keep an eye out for that video.